The morning sun peeked through the blinds of Jessica Mitchell's apartment as her alarm blared for the third time. She groaned, reaching over to silence it once and for all. Another day, another flight. After 7 years as a flight attendant, for Elite Airways the excitement had faded but the pride hadn't. Jessica specialized in first class where the rich, famous, and powerful traveled in luxury, and she'd gotten pretty good at spotting celebrities even when they tried to blend in. Coffee first, then the world, she mumbled to herself, shuffling to her tiny kitchen. Her apartment walls were covered with photos from exotic destinations: Bangkok, Paris, Sydney, perks of the job that made the difficult passengers and long hours worthwhile. As she sipped her coffee, she scrolled through her phone, checking the crew assignment for today's flight from Los Angeles to New York. 2 hours later, Jessica stood at the airport terminal looking fresh and polished in her navy uniform, her honey blonde hair pulled back into a perfect bun, not a strand out of place. Her makeup was flawless, just enough to look professional but not enough to break airline policy. She spotted her coworker Diane by the gate. "Morning," Diane yawned. "Ready for the 6-hour journey with the entitled and famous?" Jessica laughed. "Always. Any notable names on the manifest today?" Diane shrugged. "Not that I noticed, but you know how they like to use fake names sometimes." The pre-flight preparations went smoothly. Jessica checked the catering, made sure the champagne was properly chilled, and that every detail in the first-class cabin met Elite Airways' exacting standards. This attention to detail had earned her excellent reviews and generous tips over the years. As boarding began, Jessica took her position at the entrance to the first-class cabin, greeting passengers with her practiced smile. "Welcome aboard. May I show you to your seat?" The usual mix of business executives in expensive suits, wealthy older couples, and the occasional minor celebrity filed in. Jessica prided herself on recognizing faces, remembering preferences, and making people feel special. It was all part of the first-class experience. About halfway through boarding, a man in worn jeans and a simple black t-shirt approached. His long, dark hair was slightly messy, and a scruffy beard covered the lower half of his face. Most striking was the wooden bead necklace hanging around his neck. It looked handmade, the kind you might find at a craft fair or made by a child. It seemed oddly out of place among the diamonds and designer labels in first class. Jessica's eyes widened slightly as recognition dawned. Despite the casual appearance, there was no mistaking those kind eyes and that distinctive face. Keanu Reeves. "Good morning, sir. Welcome aboard," she said, maintaining her professional demeanor while excitement bubbled inside her. She'd served many celebrities before, but Keanu Reeves was different. He was a genuine Hollywood icon. "Morning, thank you," he replied with a small, polite smile. Jessica led him to his seat, 3A, a window seat near the front of the cabin. "Can I get you anything before takeoff? Water? Orange juice? Perhaps champagne?" she offered. "Just water would be great, thanks," he replied, his voice gentle and unassuming. As Jessica moved to get his water, she couldn't help but notice how different he looked from his red carpet appearances. The casual clothes, the unkempt hair, and, especially that necklace. It seemed so out of place on someone worth millions. In first class, most passengers dressed to impress. Even those who went for casual wore designer casual that cost more than her monthly rent. Jessica returned with his water. "There you go, Mr. Reeves," she said, placing it carefully on his armrest. He looked up, surprised that she had recognized him. "Thank you," he said with a nod. As more passengers boarded, Jessica found herself stealing glances at Keanu. He just sat there, reading a paperback book, occasionally looking out the window. No special requests, no demands, no entourage. And that necklace kept catching her eye. Wooden beads strung together with what looked like regular string, with a slightly bigger round pendant in the center that had some kind of pattern carved into it. 2 seats behind Keanu. An older businessman in an Italian suit that probably cost more than Jessica's car snapped his fingers to get her attention. "Excuse me," he called, not bothering to lower his voice. "Is that who I think it is?" He nodded toward Keanu. Jessica leaned in and whispered, "Yes, sir. But we respect all our passengers' privacy." The businessman smirked. "Doesn't look like much of a star today, does he? What's with that hippie necklace?" Jessica should have defended Keanu or politely deflected the comment. Instead, she found herself smiling conspiratorially. "I was wondering the same thing," she admitted. "Seems a bit out of place in first class, doesn't it?" The businessman chuckled, and Jessica felt a small thrill at having connected with him. First-class service was all about making passengers feel special, and sometimes that meant becoming their confidant or friend for the duration of the flight. As the final passengers settled in, Jessica continued her preparations, bringing pre-takeoff drinks to those who requested them. When she passed by Keanu's seat again, she found herself studying the necklace more closely. It really did look like something a kid would make at summer camp. Nothing like the fine jewelry or designer accessories the other passengers wore. The captain announced they were ready for departure, and Jessica began her safety demonstration. Throughout it all, she noticed Keanu paying careful attention, unlike many first-class passengers who typically ignored the familiar routine. Once they reached cruising altitude, Jessica and the other flight attendants began the drink service. When she reached Keanu, she couldn't resist commenting on the necklace. "That's an interesting piece," she said, nodding toward it as she handed him his requested tea. "Not what one usually sees in first class." She tried to keep her tone light, but there was an undercurrent of judgment she couldn't quite hide. Keanu's hand moved to touch the necklace gently. "Oh, this," he said quietly. "Yeah, it's special to me." Something in his tone made Jessica feel she might have overstepped, but before she could respond, another passenger called for her attention. As she walked away, she caught sight of her reflection in the gallery mirror and saw a slight smirk on her face. The interaction had left her feeling oddly superior, as if she understood proper first-class etiquette better than this world-famous actor. During the meal service, Jessica found herself near the galley with Diane and Tom, another flight attendant working in business class. "You won't believe who's in 3A, Jessica whispered. "I saw," Diane said. "Keanu Reeves. He seems nice." "Sure, but did you see what he's wearing?" Jessica raised an eyebrow. "And that necklace? It looks like something from a dollar store." Tom frowned. "Slightly. Does it matter?" "It's just funny." Jessica shrugged. "You'd think someone like him would dress the part, you know? First class has standards." "Maybe it means something to him," Diane suggested. Jessica rolled her eyes. "Maybe. Or maybe he's just trying too hard to seem relatable and down to earth." She picked up her serving tray. Anyway, back to work. As she served the main course, Jessica approached Keanu's seat. He was still reading his book, the wooden necklace resting against his black t-shirt. "Your meal, Mr. Reeves," she said, placing the tray in front of him. "Thank you," he replied, looking up with a genuine smile that made her momentarily regret her earlier comments. Jessica couldn't help herself. "I'm curious about your necklace," she said, keeping her voice down. "Is it some kind of good luck charm for flying?" Something flashed in Keanu's eyes. Was it sadness? Annoyance? But his voice remained gentle. "No, nothing like that," he said. "It was a gift from someone special." Jessica nodded, but her expression must have betrayed her thoughts because Keanu added quietly, "Sometimes the things that look simplest have the deepest meaning." There was no rebuke in his tone, but Jessica felt a twinge of discomfort nonetheless. She quickly moved on to the next passenger, but Keanu's words lingered. Throughout the next hour, Jessica continued her duties, refilling drinks and checking on passengers. She caught herself watching Keanu more than necessary, despite her comments about his appearance. There was something compelling about his calm presence and the way he treated everyone with the same quiet respect. She overheard snippets of conversation from nearby passengers discussing his latest films, his reputation for kindness, and rumors about his charitable giving. None of this aligned with the mental image she'd formed of someone who didn't understand the unspoken dress code of first class. As the flight progressed, Jessica's initial smugness began to fade. replaced by a growing curiosity about the wooden necklace and the story behind it. But she'd already set the tone with her comments and subtle eye rolls. It was too late now to show genuine interest without seeming fake. Little did Jessica know that this seemingly ordinary flight would become a turning point in her life, and that the wooden necklace she had so casually mocked would come to symbolize a lesson she would never forget. 2 hours into the flight, Jessica found herself stealing glances at Keanu whenever she passed by his seat. Despite her earlier comments about his casual appearance, there was something captivating about his calm presence. He sat quietly, sometimes reading his paperback, sometimes gazing out the window at the clouds below, occasionally touching the wooden bead necklace that had sparked her judgment. The cabin lights dimmed slightly as the flight entered its middle phase. Most passengers were either watching movies on their screens, working on laptops, or napping under their plush Elite Airways blankets. Jessica began her routine check, making sure everyone had what they needed. When she reached Keanu's row, she noticed his empty water glass. "Would you like a refill, Mr. Reeves?" she asked, her voice professionally pleasant. He looked up from his book and smiled. "That would be great, thanks." As Jessica took his glass, her eyes once again fell on the wooden necklace. In the dimmer cabin light, she noticed more details. The beads weren't uniform but slightly different sizes, and the larger pendant in the center had what looked like a crudely carved sun or star. It was definitely handmade, probably by someone without much skill. The contrast between this simple accessory and the man wearing it, someone who could afford anything, continued to perplex her. She returned with fresh water and couldn't help herself. "I hope you don't mind me asking," she said, her voice lowered so other passengers wouldn't hear. "But is there a story behind your necklace? It seems unique." The way she emphasized unique made it clear what she really meant. Out of place, inappropriate, strange. She knew it wasn't her business, but curiosity mixed with judgment got the better of her. Keanu looked down at the necklace, his fingers touching the center pendant gently. For a moment, Jessica thought he might ignore her question. Instead, he looked up, his eyes kind but somehow distant. "It was a gift," he said simply. "From a child at St. Mary's Hospital in Los Angeles. I visit there sometimes." Jessica nodded, not sure how to respond. She hadn't expected such a straightforward answer. "A child made that for you?" she asked, trying to keep her voice neutral. "Yes," Keanu replied. "His name is Pete. He's 9. He's been fighting leukemia for almost 3 years now." Jessica felt a slight flush creep into her cheeks. That's really sweet of you to wear it," she managed to say. Keanu's expression remained calm, but there was something in his eyes that made Jessica feel suddenly very small. He worked on it for weeks during his treatments. Said the wooden beads represented strength. The bigger one in the middle is supposed to be the sun, because even on the darkest days, the sun is still there somewhere. He paused. "At least, that's what Pete told me." Jessica's professional smile faltered. "I hope he's doing better now." "He has good days and bad days," Keanu said, his voice soft. But he never stopped smiling. Before Jessica could respond, the businessman from earlier called for her attention. She excused herself, feeling a strange mixture of embarrassment and discomfort. As she walked away, she heard Keanu return to his book, the pages turning quietly. The businessman wanted another scotch. "No ice this time," he instructed, before adding in a stage whisper, "So what's the deal with his homeless look? Method acting for a new role?" Jessica should have politely deflected the question. Instead, she leaned in slightly. "Actually," she began, then stopped herself. Something didn't feel right about continuing to mock the necklace now that she knew its origin, but the businessman was looking at her expectantly. "I think it might be," she said finally, taking the coward's way out. "Actors, you know. Always in character." The businessman chuckled as if they were sharing a private joke, and Jessica moved on, feeling worse than before. As she prepared his drink in the galley, Diane joined her. "Everything okay?" Diane asked. "You look bothered." Jessica shook her head. It's nothing. Just tired, I guess. The flight's half over. Then we have a full 24 hours in New York. Before the return, Diane reminded her. I'm thinking shopping in Soho, then dinner somewhere nice. You in? Definitely, Jessica replied, grateful for the change of subject. As she carried the scotch back to the businessman, Jessica passed by a young woman who was trying to take a discreet photo of Keanu with her phone. Jessica cleared her throat slightly, catching the woman's attention. I'm sorry, ma'am, but we ask that you respect all passengers' privacy, she said quietly. The woman blushed and put her phone away. Sorry, he's my favorite actor. He does so much good in the world, you know, all that charity work, and he never brags about it. Jessica nodded and continued down the aisle, the woman's words adding to her growing discomfort. In the galley, Jessica found Tom preparing coffee for business class. Hey, he said, is that really Keanu Reeves up there, the guy from The Matrix? Yes, Jessica confirmed. Cool. My brother works at Children's Hospital in Boston. Says Keanu visits kids there when he's filming in the area. Doesn't bring cameras, doesn't make a big deal about it. Just shows up and spends time with the kids. Tom shook his head admiringly. Not many celebrities like that. Jessica felt her stomach twist. I didn't know that, she said quietly. Yeah, he's apparently funded a bunch of cancer research too. Anonymously, though people figured it out eventually. Tom continued. My brother says the kids go crazy when he visits. They make him drawings and stuff. Like necklaces? Jessica asked before she could stop herself. Probably, Tom shrugged. Why? No reason, Jessica said quickly. Better get back out there. As lunch service began, Jessica worked methodically, trying to focus on her job rather than the growing sense of shame that was building inside her. She had judged someone based on appearances, had even mockingly discussed him with other passengers, and now was learning that the very thing she'd ridiculed, the handmade necklace, represented something far more meaningful than the designer. Accessories others in first class flaunted. When she reached Keanu's seat with his lunch tray, she placed it carefully in front of him. Your meal, Mr. Reeves. Thank you, he said, looking up from his book. Jessica hesitated. About earlier. I apologize if I seemed nosy about your necklace. Keanu shook his head slightly. No need to apologize. It's a beautiful gift, she added, meaning it this time. Something in her tone must have conveyed her sincerity, because Keanu's expression softened. Pete would be happy to hear that. He was worried it wasn't good enough for a famous person. Jessica felt another pang of regret. He should be proud, it's special. As she moved on to the next passenger, Jessica overheard two women across the aisle discussing Keanu in hushed voices. Did you see that article about him last month? The one about how he gave away most of his Matrix earnings to the special effects team? I did. And he bought motorcycles for all the stunt guys on John Wick. So generous. And after everything he's been through, losing his best friend to drugs, his girlfriend in that car accident, and then his sister's cancer battle, yet he's still one of the kindest people in Hollywood. Jessica nearly dropped the tray she was holding. Sister's cancer battle? The necklace from the child with leukemia suddenly took on even deeper significance. Had Keanu been visiting children's hospitals because of his own family's experience with the disease? She felt increasingly awful about her earlier behavior. The judgmental looks, the snide remarks to other staff, the conspiratorial eye-rolling with the businessman, all based on what? A wooden necklace that didn't match her idea of first-class fashion? As the meal service concluded, Jessica found herself back in the galley, absently arranging dessert trays. Diane nudged her. You're a million miles away. What's going on? Jessica sighed. Have you ever judged someone completely wrong? Like embarrassingly wrong? Diane raised an eyebrow. This about Keanu and that necklace you were making fun of earlier? Jessica winced. You heard that? Hard not to. Diane shrugged. But what changed? The necklace was made by a kid with cancer at a hospital he visits, Jessica explained in a low voice. And I just overheard that his sister battled cancer too. Diane's Expression softened. Ah, that explains it. Yeah, I remember reading something about that. His sister had leukemia years ago. He helped take care of her. Jessica felt even worse. And I was acting like he should be wearing some expensive designer piece instead. We all make mistakes, Diane offered. At least you realized it. But as Jessica prepared to return to the cabin with coffee, she couldn't shake the feeling that her mistake revealed something ugly about herself, a tendency to judge based on appearances, to value the superficial trappings of wealth over genuine meaning. The realization was uncomfortable. Back in the cabin, she served coffee with mechanical efficiency, her mind still churning with regret. When she reached Keanu's row, she noticed he was looking at something on his phone. A photo of a young boy in a hospital bed grinning widely, despite the IV lines and medical equipment surrounding him. The boy was holding up a half-finished wooden necklace, clearly the same one Keanu now wore. Jessica felt her throat tighten. She placed his coffee down silently, not trusting herself to speak. Keanu looked up, noticing her expression as she glanced at his phone. "That's Pete," he said simply. "Last month when he gave me this." He touched the necklace again. "He's having a tough time right now, but his doctors are hopeful." Jessica nodded, unable to form words. As she turned to go, Keanu added, "I told him I'd wear it every day until he finishes his treatment. It's been 94 days so far." Jessica walked away, her vision slightly blurred with unexpected tears. Behind her, she heard the businessman, from earlier, speak loudly enough for nearby passengers to hear. "Honestly, if I had his money, I wouldn't be caught dead wearing children's crafts on a public flight. Some things should stay in the charity photo op where they belong." Several passengers turned to look, but before Jessica could react, another voice spoke up, an elderly woman seated across from the businessman. "Young man, sometimes the most valuable things we can wear aren't measured in dollars, but in the love that goes into making them." Jessica paused at the galley entrance, listening. The businessman scoffed. "Sure, for normal people, but celebrities have an image to maintain." The elderly woman smiled knowingly. "Perhaps that's exactly the image he's maintaining. One of genuine, human connection over superficial appearances." As Jessica continued into the galley, those words echoed in her mind, along with the uncomfortable realization that she had aligned herself with the wrong perspective entirely. The flight was only halfway done, but Jessica's view of both Keanu Reeves and herself had already changed irrevocably. Jessica stood in the galley, hands trembling slightly as she arranged cups on her service tray. The elderly woman's words, too, the businessman echoed in her mind. "Sometimes the most valuable things we can wear aren't measured in dollars, but in the love that goes into making them." Those words cut deep, because they highlighted exactly what Jessica had failed to understand when she'd mocked Keanu's necklace. She took a moment to compose herself, breathing deeply and straightening her uniform before returning to the cabin. As she moved through first class offering coffee refills, she noticed several passengers had their phones out, some typing rapidly, others scrolling through social media. Nothing unusual there, except for the way a few of them glanced up at her, then quickly back down at their screens. When Jessica reached the elderly woman who had spoken up, she offered a warm smile. "More coffee, ma'am?" "No, thank you, dear," the woman replied, her eyes kind but knowing. "Tell me, how long have you been flying with Elite Airways?" "About 7 years now," Jessica answered, surprised by the personal question. The woman nodded. "A long time to observe people, I imagine. I've been a people watcher for over 70 years myself." She glanced meaningfully at Keanu, then back at Jessica. "It's funny how we think we can know someone just by looking at them, isn't it?" Jessica felt her cheeks warm. "Yes, ma'am. It is." "I'm Dorothea, by the way," the woman said. "And despite what you might be thinking, I wasn't always this wise. I've made plenty of snap judgments myself over the years." Jessica appreciated the kindness in the woman's voice. "I'm Jessica, and thank you for the reminder about what's really valuable." Dorothea patted Jessica's hand. "We all need reminding sometimes." As Jessica moved on, she overheard snippets of conversation from the Passengers with phones absolutely confirmed it's him on this flight. Wearing the necklace Pete made him just like he promised. Says he visits the hospital at least twice a month without any publicity. Jessica's confusion must have shown on her face, because Diane caught her eye from across the cabin and gestured for her to come over. "You might want to see this," Diane whispered, showing Jessica her phone during their brief moment together in the aisle. On the screen was a social media post from St. Mary's Hospital dated the previous week. A photo of Keanu sitting beside a hospital bed where a thin boy with no hair grinned widely. Around the boy's neck was a wooden bead necklace identical to the one Keanu wore now, except the boy's had a moon pendant while Keanu's had a sun. The caption read, "Pete wanted to make sure his favorite visitor had a matching friendship necklace for when they can't see each other. 94 days of treatment down. Hopefully not many more to go. Or Keanu the Great, Czech cancer warrior." The post had thousands of likes and comments. Jessica scrolled down to see people sharing stories about Keanu's hospital visits, his anonymous donations to cancer research, and his support for children's charities, all done quietly, without press releases or photo opportunities. "I had no idea," Jessica murmured, handing the phone back. "There's more," Diane said. "Apparently his sister battled leukemia for 10 years. That's why he's so involved with these kids." Jessica felt even worse. She'd judged someone based on a superficial detail, completely missing the depth and meaning behind it. The necklace wasn't just a child's craft project. It was a symbol of connection, of shared struggle, of keeping promises. "I really messed up," she admitted to Diane. "Don't beat yourself up too much," Diane replied. "But maybe this is a good reminder for all of us about looking beyond appearances." As Jessica returned to her duties, she noticed the businessman who had been mocking Keanu earlier was now on his phone, frowning as he scrolled. He caught Jessica's eye and gestured for her to come over. "Did you know about all this?" he asked, showing her his screen. Another social media post about Keanu's charity work. "I'm learning about it now, sir," Jessica replied honestly. The businessman looked uncomfortable. "Well, if I'd known the necklace was from a sick kid, it shouldn't matter where it's from," Jessica said quietly, surprising herself with her boldness. "I judged him too, and I was wrong." The businessman shifted in his seat, clearly displeased by her response, but said nothing more. As Jessica walked away, she felt a strange mix of emotions, shame for her earlier behavior, but also a growing sense of clarity. For years, she had equated first class with designer labels, expensive accessories, and status symbols. She had judged passengers based on how well they fit her idea of luxury, forgetting that true class had nothing to do with outward appearances. In the galley, Jessica took a moment to check her own reflection in the small mirror. Her perfect makeup, her immaculate uniform, her professionally styled hair. She had always taken pride in looking the part of a first-class flight attendant. But what was beneath that polished surface? What kind of person had she become? The flight hit a patch of turbulence and the seatbelt sign dinged on. Jessica made one final pass through the cabin, checking that everyone was secure before taking her jump seat. From her position, she could see Keanu. He had put away his book and was looking out the window at the clouds, one hand absently touching the wooden necklace. There was something peaceful about his expression, a quiet contentment that had nothing to do with his wealth or fame. Jessica thought about what she knew of him now. Not just a famous actor, but someone who visited sick children without cameras, who funded research anonymously, who wore a handmade necklace not as a fashion statement, but as a promise to a boy fighting for his life. The turbulence passed, and Jessica returned to the galley to prepare for the final service before landing. Tom joined her, lowering his voice. "Have you seen what's happening online? Someone on the flight posted that Keanu Reeves is aboard, wearing the necklace that Pete Kid made him. It's going viral. People are sharing all sorts of stories about him visiting hospitals and stuff." Jessica nodded. "I've seen some of it. My brother just texted me," Tom continued, showing Jessica his phone. "Says Pete's having a rough day today, treatment's hitting him hard. But seeing all these posts about Keanu actually wearing his necklace has really lifted his spirits." Jessica felt her throat tighten. A child fighting cancer was having a slightly better day because a famous actor kept his promise and wore a handmade necklace, the very necklace she had mocked. That's really good to hear, she managed to say. As she arranged dessert trays, Jessica noticed a young woman approaching the galley, phone in hand. She recognized her as the passenger who had tried to take Keanu's photo earlier. "Excuse me," the woman said hesitantly. "I just wanted to apologize for trying to take that picture before. I didn't mean to be disrespectful." "It's all right," Jessica assured her. "We just try to make sure all our passengers have privacy." "I understand," the woman nodded. "It's just, my little brother had leukemia 2 years ago. He's in remission now, but it was the hardest thing our family ever went through. When I read about what Keanu does for these kids..." She paused, her eyes becoming watery. "It means a lot, you know, to see someone use their fame like that." Jessica nodded, her own emotions threatening to surface. "I can imagine. Anyway," the woman continued, "I just wanted to ask if there's a way I could thank him without bothering him. Maybe just a note or something?" Jessica thought for a moment. "I can give him a message after we land if you'd like." The woman smiled gratefully. "Could you just tell him Beth says thank you for making kids like her brother feel special?" "That's all." "I will," Jessica promised. As Beth returned to her seat, Jessica felt something shift inside her. Throughout her career, she had served countless wealthy and famous passengers. Some had been kind, others demanding, most somewhere in between. But she had always evaluated them based on how they presented themselves, how well they embodied the first-class image she expected. Never had she considered that true worth might be found in the things that didn't match that image, like a simple wooden necklace made by a child's hands. Jessica finished preparing the dessert service and headed back into the cabin. As she passed Keanu's seat, she noticed he was looking at his phone again, his expression somber. This time, she didn't try to peek at the screen. Whatever he was looking at was his business, not fodder for judgment or gossip. But as she placed a small plate with a chocolate truffle on his tray table, he looked up. "Thank you," he said, then hesitated. "Actually, could I ask you something?" "Of course, Mr. Reeves," Jessica replied. "Pete, the boy who made this," he touched, the necklace, "had a rough day with his treatment. The hospital just sent me a message. I promised I'd video call him when I land, but I'm wondering if there's any way to do it sooner. Even just for a minute." Jessica thought about airline policy regarding phone calls during flights. It wasn't technically allowed, but this wasn't a typical situation. "We're starting our descent in about 20 minutes, she said. "But I think we could make an exception for a quick call before then. Perhaps in the galley area, where it won't disturb other passengers." Relief washed over Keanu's face. "That would be amazing. Thank you." "Let me check with the senior flight attendant," Jessica said. "I'll be right back." As Jessica made her way to speak with the chief flight attendant, she reflected on how differently this interaction had gone compared to her earlier judgmental thoughts. Instead of focusing on Keanu's appearance or the wooden necklace that had seemed so out of place to her before, she was now focused on helping him keep another promise to a sick child. The perspective shift was uncomfortable but necessary, forcing her to confront aspects of herself she hadn't wanted to see. Her superficiality, her quick judgments, her equating of worth with appearance. The revelation wasn't just about Keanu Reeves or a wooden necklace. It was about the kind of person Jessica had become and the kind of person she wanted to be. Jessica approached the chief flight attendant, Linda, who was checking inventory in the main galley. "Linda, I have an unusual request," Jessica began, explaining Keanu's situation with the sick child and his desire to make a quick call before landing. Linda considered for a moment. "Technically, we're not supposed to allow calls during flight." "I know," Jessica acknowledged, "but this seems like a special circumstance. The child had a rough day with his cancer treatment. Just a quick video call from the galley where it won't disturb anyone." Linda's expression softened. "All right. 5 minutes in the rear galley where there's more privacy. But keep it brief. We begin descent in 20 minutes. "Thank you," Jessica said, relieved. As she headed back to inform Keanu, She noticed more passengers on their phones, some of them glancing at her as she passed. An uneasy feeling settled in her stomach, but she brushed it aside. When she reached Keanu's seat, she leaned down slightly. "Mr. Reeves, we can arrange a brief call from the rear galley. If you'd like to follow me?" Gratitude flashed across his face as he unbuckled his seatbelt. "Thank you for this." As they walked through the cabin, Jessica noticed more eyes on them, more passengers typing on phones. The businessman who'd made snide comments earlier watched them pass, his expression unreadable. In the rear galley, Jessica provided as much privacy as the small space allowed. "You have about 5 minutes before we begin preparation for landing." Keanu nodded, already dialing on his phone. Jessica turned to give him privacy, but not before she saw the screen connect to a hospital room where a pale, thin boy lay in bed, his face lighting up at the sight of Keanu. "You're still wearing it," the boy's excited voice carried clearly despite his obvious weakness. "Every day, just like I promised, Pete," Keanu replied, his voice warmer and more animated than Jessica had heard it during the flight. Jessica moved farther away to give them privacy, but she couldn't help overhearing bits of their conversation. Pete, talking about his tough day with treatment, Keanu encouraging him to stay strong, both of them discussing their matching necklaces like a secret club handshake. "The sun and moon," Pete said. "Remember what they mean?" "Of course," Keanu answered. "Even when we can't see each other, we're still connected." Jessica busied herself with preparations for landing, her throat tight with emotion. The contrast between this genuine connection and her earlier mockery of the necklace made her deeply ashamed. The 5 minutes passed quickly. Jessica gently signaled to Keanu that they needed to wrap up. "I have to go now, buddy. We're landing soon," he told Pete. "But I'll visit next week when I'm back in LA, okay? Stay strong until then." "Promise to keep wearing the necklace?" Pete asked, his voice small. "Every single day," Keanu assured him. "It gives me strength too, you know." After the call ended, Keanu stood in the galley for a moment, collecting himself. "Thank you for arranging that. It meant a lot to him." "I'm glad I could help," Jessica replied sincerely. As they walked back to his seat, she added, "It sounds like you've made a real difference in his life." Keanu shook his head slightly. "It goes both ways. These kids, their courage, their hope, despite everything they're facing, they're the real heroes." Back in his seat, Keanu returned to looking out the window. Jessica continued her landing preparations, checking seatbelts, collecting final items, securing the cabin. But something felt off. Too many passengers were on their phones despite the announcement to put them away for landing. Too many glances followed her movements. In the galley, Diane pulled her aside. "Jessica, you need to see this," she whispered, showing her phone. Jessica's blood ran cold. There on the screen was a social media post that had already gathered thousands of shares. It showed a photo taken on the plane, Keanu in his seat with the wooden necklace clearly visible. But what made Jessica's heart stop was the caption, "Flying first class with Keanu today." Flight attendant mocked his cheap necklace, not knowing it was made by a 9-year-old cancer patient he visits regularly. She rolled her eyes when he explained, "Some people just don't get what really matters. Keanu deserves better." "Who posted this?" Jessica asked, her voice barely audible. "Passenger in 4C, Diane said grimly. "And it's going viral. People are already calling for your firing." Jessica felt lightheaded. "But that's not exactly what happened. I didn't mock him directly." "It doesn't matter," Diane cut in. "Perception is reality online. And there's more." She scrolled to show Jessica another post, this one with an actual recording. Someone had filmed their earlier interaction when Jessica had commented on the necklace. The video caught her subtle eye roll as she turned away, her condescending tone unmistakable. "Oh God," Jessica whispered. "I didn't realize anyone was recording." "It's everywhere now," Diane said. "And people are furious. Fire the flight attendant is already trending." Jessica felt sick. Yes, she had judged him, had made snide comments to colleagues, had exchanged knowing looks with the businessman. But seeing it play out online, seeing herself through others' eyes, was devastating. Worse, the recording didn't capture her later change of heart, her regret, or her helping Keanu call Pete. The landing announcement sounded, and Jessica had to pull herself together to perform her duties. As she took her jump seat for landing, her mind raced. Would she lose her job? How would she explain this to her family, to potential future employers? The plane touched down smoothly at JFK Airport. As passengers prepared to disembark, Jessica maintained her professional smile despite feeling like her world was crumbling. When she glanced at her phone during a brief moment in the galley, she saw dozens of notifications, colleagues texting about the viral story, friends asking if she was okay, even a message from her mother asking what was happening. Passengers filed out, many giving Jessica cold looks or avoiding eye contact entirely. The businessman who had encouraged her mockery earlier hurried past without a glance, clearly not wanting to be associated with her now. Dorothea, the elderly woman, paused briefly. "This will be a hard lesson, dear," she said kindly. "But perhaps a necessary one." When Keanu finally stood to leave, Jessica braced herself. Would he have seen the posts? Would he be angry? He had every right to be. As he reached the door where she stood, Jessica spoke quietly. "Mr. Reeves, I want to apologize for my behavior earlier. The way I reacted to your necklace, it was judgmental and wrong." Keanu looked at her thoughtfully. "We all make mistakes," he said. "What matters is how we learn from them." "I'm not sure. I'll have the chance to learn from this one," Jessica admitted, her voice barely steady. "The video of our interaction has gone viral. I'll probably lose my job." Surprise flickered across Keanu's face. "Video? I wasn't aware of any video." "Someone recorded us and posted it online. It's not good." Keanu frowned. "I'm sorry to hear that. That wasn't necessary." Before he could say more, an airline representative appeared at the jet bridge entrance. "Ms. Mitchell, I need to speak with you immediately after all passengers have disembarked." Jessica nodded, her stomach dropping. "Yes, sir." Keanu glanced between them, seeming to understand the situation. "Thank you for your help with the call earlier," he said to Jessica, then walked off the plane. Once all passengers had left, Jessica followed the airline representative to a small office near the gate. Inside waited Paul Chen, the regional manager, for Elite Airways, a man Jessica had only seen at company-wide meetings and training sessions. "Ms. Mitchell," he began formally, "I assume you're aware of the situation?" "Yes, sir," Jessica replied, her voice small. "The video of your interaction with Mr. Reeves has over 2 million views already, with countless negative comments about our airline. Our social media team is being overwhelmed." He looked tired and disappointed. "Can you explain what happened?" Jessica took a deep breath. "I made a mistake, sir. I judged Mr. Reeves based on his appearance, specifically a wooden necklace he was wearing that I thought looked out of place in first class. I later learned it was made by a child with cancer whom he visits regularly. The video shows me making a comment about the necklace and reacting poorly when he explained its significance." "I see," Paul said. "And did you apologize to Mr. Reeves?" "Yes, sir, both during the flight after I learned the truth and again as he was disembarking." Paul nodded, making notes. "Nevertheless, this has become a significant PR issue. Elite Airways prides itself on respectful service to all passengers, regardless of their appearance or belongings." "I understand, sir. Given the circumstances and the viral nature of this incident, I have no choice but to place you on immediate administrative suspension, pending a full investigation." Jessica had expected this, but hearing it still felt like a punch to the gut. "I understand," she repeated. "Please surrender your company ID and secure access card. You'll be contacted regarding next steps within 48 hours. Jessica handed over her credentials, her hands shaking slightly. 7 years with the airline, possibly ended by one moment of superficial judgment caught on camera. As she left the office, Jessica felt numb. In the terminal, she noticed people looking at their phones, then at her. The video had spread far enough that strangers were recognizing her. She ducked her head and hurried toward the crew exit. Outside, she checked her phone again and found hundreds more notifications. Friends and family expressing support or concern, but also hateful messages from strangers who had somehow found her social media accounts. The hashtag #FireTheFlightAttendant had over 50,000 posts already. Jessica took a shaky breath. One mistake, amplified by social media into a career-ending disaster. She had judged someone based on appearances, and now the world was judging her. The same way, through a brief video clip that captured her worst moment without any of the context or growth that followed. As she headed toward the crew shuttle to her hotel, Jessica noticed a small crowd gathered near the terminal exit. Phones raised. In their midst stood Keanu Reeves, patiently signing autographs and taking photos with fans. The wooden necklace was clearly visible around his neck, catching the afternoon sun. Jessica quickly turned away, not wanting to be recognized near him and create another social media moment. But as she walked toward the shuttle stop, her phone pinged with a new notification. "Ms. Mitchell?" Jessica turned to find a young woman from Elite Airways' PR department hurrying toward her. "Yes? Mr. Reeves is asking to speak with you before he leaves the airport," the woman said, slightly out of breath. "He says it's important." Jessica's heart raced with anxiety. Why would he want to speak with her now? To express his disappointment? To tell her off properly now that they were off the plane? "Where?" she asked. "VIP lounge. I can take you there now." With no other choice, Jessica followed the PR representative back into the terminal, wondering what more this day could possibly bring. Jessica followed the PR representative through the bustling terminal, her heart pounding. All around her, people were glued to their phones, and she couldn't help wondering how many were watching the video of her mocking Keanu Reeves. Twice, she noticed travelers doing double takes as she passed, recognition dawning in their eyes. "This way," the PR rep said, leading her through a discreet doorway marked private access and down a quieter hallway. With each step, Jessica's anxiety grew. What could Keanu possibly want? To scold her properly, away from the confines of the airplane, to make her apologize on camera to repair his image. Her mind raced with possibilities, none of them good. They arrived at a door with VIP Lounge C on a small plaque. The PR rep knocked once, then used a keycard to open it. "Mr. Reeves is waiting inside," she said, gesturing for Jessica to enter. "I'll be right out here if needed." Jessica stepped into the plush lounge, immediately spotting Keanu sitting in a comfortable chair near a window overlooking the tarmac. He wasn't alone. Next to him sat a woman in a sharp business suit who Jessica immediately recognized as Lisa Wong, Elite Airways head of public relations, a high-level executive who normally dealt only with major corporate crises. This wasn't good. "Ms. Mitchell, please join us," Lisa said, her tone professionally neutral. Jessica walked over on shaky legs, feeling like she was approaching her own execution. "Mr. Reeves, Ms. Wong," she greeted them, her voice barely audible. "Please sit." "Down," Keanu said, gesturing to the chair across from them. Jessica sat, hands folded tightly in her lap to hide their trembling. "I want to apologize again," she began. "What I did was inexcusable and—" Lisa held up a hand to stop her. "Before we continue, I should explain why we're here. Mr. Reeves contacted us directly after learning about the video circulating online." Jessica looked at Keanu in surprise. "I don't agree with what's happening," Keanu said simply. "The social media response is excessive." Lisa nodded. "Mr. Reeves has asked to make a statement regarding the incident, which is remarkably generous, considering the circumstances." Jessica felt confusion replace some of her fear. "A statement?" "Social media can be a cruel place," Keanu said, leaning forward slightly. "One mistake, taken out of context, shouldn't define a person or cost them their livelihood." "But I did judge you," Jessica admitted. "I did make comments about your necklace." "Yes," Keanu acknowledged. "And that wasn't right. But you also helped me call Pete when I needed to reach him. People are complex. We make mistakes, we learn, we grow." Lisa cleared her throat. Mr. Reeves has proposed making a public statement that would contextualize the incident. He feels the online backlash against you is disproportionate to what actually occurred. Jessica could hardly believe what she was hearing. You would do that? Why? Keanu touched the wooden necklace thoughtfully. Pete taught me something important during his battle with cancer. He said, "Bad stuff happens, but we get to choose what to do next. The internet mob wants your career destroyed over one mistake. I don't think that's right." Tears welled in Jessica's eyes. After everything that had happened, her judgment, her mockery, he was offering to help her. The statement would need to be accompanied by a sincere apology from you, Lisa added, both to Mr. Reeves and to our passengers and staff. Jessica nodded quickly. Of course. I'm truly sorry for what happened. If we do this, Lisa continued, her tone serious, you'd still face disciplinary action. The company has standards that were not met, but it would likely mean suspension rather than termination. I understand, Jessica said. The possibility of keeping her job, of having a chance to learn and grow from this mistake rather than being permanently branded by it, felt like more than she deserved. Keanu looked at his watch. I have a car waiting, but I can take a few minutes to record something if you have what you need. Lisa produced a tablet from her briefcase. Our team has prepared a brief statement. You're welcome to modify it however you see fit. She handed it to Keanu. As he read through the text, Jessica gathered her courage. Mr. Reeves, I need to say something. He looked up, waiting. I didn't just make a casual comment about your necklace, Jessica confessed, feeling she needed to be completely honest. I judged you from the moment you boarded because you didn't fit my idea of what a first-class passenger should look like. I made comments to other staff. I exchanged looks with another passenger who was also being judgmental. The words tumbled out, painful but necessary. The video only caught part of it. I was worse than people know. Keanu's expression remained thoughtful as she continued. What changed me wasn't just learning about Pete and the necklace. It was seeing how you treated everyone with the same respect regardless of their status. It was learning about your sister and your hospital visits. It was watching you care more about keeping a promise to a sick child than about what people thought of your appearance. Jessica took a deep breath. I don't deserve your help, but I promise I've already learned more from this experience than any punishment could teach me. The room fell silent. Lisa looked between them, clearly uncertain how Keanu would respond to this fuller confession. After what felt like an eternity, Keanu set down the tablet. That's exactly why I want to help, he said quietly. Because you understand what happened and why it was wrong. That's rare. He turned to Lisa. I'd like to modify this statement. For the next 15 minutes, Keanu worked with Lisa to craft a statement that acknowledged what had happened without condemning Jessica entirely. He was careful to point out that while her initial judgment was wrong, she had shown growth during the flight, ultimately helping him connect with Pete during a difficult moment. When they finished, Lisa set up her phone to record. Keanu spoke, directly to the camera, his voice steady and sincere. You may have seen a video circulating online showing an interaction between myself and a flight attendant regarding the necklace I'm wearing. He began, touching the wooden beads. What the video doesn't show is the complete story. Yes, there was a moment of misjudgment which the flight attendant later apologized for, but she also went out of her way to help me video call the young boy with cancer who made this necklace when he was having a particularly difficult day with his treatment. Keanu continued, his expression earnest. We all make mistakes. What matters is how we learn from them. I've seen how quickly the internet can rush to judgment, often with incomplete information. Before joining the calls for someone to lose their job and livelihood, I'd ask you to consider whether you've ever made a mistake you've regretted and learned from. I believe in second chances, and I've asked Elite Airways to handle this as a learning opportunity rather than a reason for termination. He concluded with something that hadn't been in the script. The boy who made this necklace, Pete, is fighting every day for his life with remarkable courage and forgiveness. I think we could all learn something from his example. When the recording Finished, Lisa looked satisfied. This is perfect. We'll release it through our official channels and Mr. Reeves's team can share it as well. It should help shift the narrative. Keanu stood, signaling the end of the meeting. I need to get going. He turned to Jessica. I hope things work out. Thank you, Jessica said, her voice thick with emotion. I don't know how to repay this kindness. Keanu shook his head slightly. Just remember this feeling the next time you're tempted to judge someone based on appearances. That's repayment enough. After he left, Lisa turned to Jessica with a more serious expression. You're still suspended for 2 weeks without pay, and you'll need to complete additional training before returning. Your future assignments will also be closely monitored for at least 6 months. Jessica nodded. I understand. Thank you for the second chance. Don't thank me, Lisa replied. Thank Mr. Reeves. Without his intervention, this would have ended very differently. 2 weeks later, Jessica sat in her apartment scrolling through her phone. Keanu's video statement had indeed changed the public narrative. While some still criticized her, many had embraced his message about forgiveness and second chances. The hashtag, "everyone deserves a second chance," had even started trending briefly. Her phone pinged with a text from Diane. Ready for your first flight? Back tomorrow? Jessica typed back. Nervous but ready. The past 2 weeks had given her time to reflect deeply on the person she had been and the person she wanted to be. She had completed not only the required sensitivity training, but had also volunteered at a local children's hospital, an experience that had further opened her eyes to what truly mattered in life. Her doorbell rang. A delivery person handed her a small package with no return address. Curious, Jessica opened it to find a simple bracelet made of wooden beads, similar to Keanu's necklace, along with a note. For your first day back, remember the sun and moon are always connected, even when they can't see each other. Pete and Kay. Jessica slipped the bracelet onto her wrist, tears welling in her eyes. She had judged a man for wearing a child's handmade gift in first class, never imagining that one day she would proudly wear something similar herself. The next morning, as Jessica put on her Elite Airways uniform for the first time in 2 weeks, she added the wooden bracelet to her wrist, technically against the uniform policy, but she'd requested and received special permission to wear it. As she looked in the mirror, she no longer saw just the polished, perfect flight attendant she had once prided herself on being. She saw someone who had made a terrible mistake and been given a precious second chance. On her way to the airport, Jessica's phone lit up with a news notification. Keanu Reeves visits Children's Hospital with Pete, young cancer patient in remission after successful treatment. The accompanying photo showed Keanu and a beaming, healthier-looking Pete, both wearing their matching necklaces, surrounded by smiling children. As Jessica stepped onto the airport shuttle, a fellow flight attendant glanced at her wooden bracelet. That's pretty, she said. Doesn't quite match the uniform though, does it? Jessica touched the simple wooden beads gently. Actually, it matches perfectly, she replied. It just depends on what you're looking at.